You never know when a championship opportunity is going to fall from the sky. That was the last thing we heard from CM Punk 3 months ago on the Raw after WrestleMania. On Monday, he showed up in his hometown of Chicago and walked out the new WWE champion, ending Sami Zayn's historic 9-day title reign. That's right, 9 days. We have our thoughts, we have our opinions, and we are going to break down all the scenarios going into SummerSlam and what WWE Creative should do in order to cover all the gaps. Meanwhile, in AEW, Will Ospreay and the Death Riders is one of the most compelling storylines in that company right now, and Kenny Omega and MJF are on a collision course for the title this Wednesday, and if Kenny Omega loses, he will never be able to wrestle for the AEW title ever again. Who should win? Why should they win? We are going to talk about it. And also, we got some news on Sheamus. That's right, Sheamus will no longer be with WWE after his contract expires. We have our thoughts, we have our opinions, and we are going to talk about it. So without further ado, let's get straight to it.
Summon the Spectre.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to episode 25 of the SpectreVerse Podcast. I am your host, JariSpectre, and I want to thank you guys for joining me on this Wednesday, wherever you may be watching or listening from. We got a lot to talk about. Like I said in the intro, we got a lot of news, a lot of big things happened in the world of pro wrestling, and we're going to get to it in a little bit. But before we do that, first and foremost, I want you guys to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that bell for notifications. You guys can follow me and all my social media in the description down below. And before we even jump into anything, I want to just say I hope you guys had a great 4th of July. I sure as hell did. I went up north with my girlfriend and her family, and like you can probably tell, maybe a little bit, I definitely got some sun. I am feeling it. Absolutely. I had a great time. Shot off a bunch of fireworks. I got to go jet skiing for the first time. I went tubing for the first time in years on the lake. It was very, very fun. Absolutely love being up there. Love spending time with them. It's always a good time. I also want to apologize for last week's episode, or lack thereof. It was a freaking heat wave here in Wisconsin. Let me tell you. I shit you not. I was not kidding when I said it was 95 degrees outside, and I don't have air conditioning in here. I was sweating buckets, and I could feel myself pretty much like ready to faint while doing this podcast last week. So I want to apologize for the lack of an episode last week, but because of that, we are going to make sure that we have a full-fledged episode today. So without further ado, let's go ahead, and we're going to start with Monday Night Raw that happened on Monday. The show started with Sami Zayn backstage, and Cody Rhodes is talking to him, pretty much saying good luck, and then he immediately gets ambushed by Gunther. Gunther takes out Cody, smashes his head into a car door, and he starts bleeding from the ear. At this point, I'm already thinking, as the wrestler that I am the Spectre Jaden Mercer in the ring. So I know a thing or two when it comes to angles and storylines and all that fun jazz. I knew for a fact they're like, okay, they don't want the backlash of Cody Rhodes potentially walking out of Chicago as WWE champion, because they know that's going to be a bad look. So what do? They have Gunther attack him and take him out of the equation. So what does that mean? Now Sami Zayn doesn't have an opponent for tonight, which they played up throughout the show. But obviously we know what happened in the main event, and we're going to get there in a second. Seth Rollins then comes out, and he talks about the history of him and Roman Reigns, and pretty much saying how he's looking at the kids in the front row, and he's like, I used to be one of those kids. Roman was never one of those kids. And pretty much ever since then, he's been grinding and hustling because deep down, he knows that he's better than Roman. But at the same time, they've always been on an even playing field. Who interrupts him? It's not Jay. It's not Jimmy. It's not Jacob. It's not Roman. But LA Knight interrupts Seth Rollins. And he pretty much comes out there and says, you know what? He's just as big as a problem as Roman is to him. Because both of them, the Bloodline and the Vision, when Seth was still in it, they were the ones that were holding him down and holding him back. And now he is taking no prisoners and nobody comes out unscathed. So he has his eyes set on both Roman and Seth. Seth then pretty much kind of just shoves him away and says, when I beat Roman for the title, just know you're going to be the first person I'm going to put in the grave, aka Barry. But we know, let's be realistic here. I don't think Seth Rollins is going to walk out of SummerSlam as the new World Heavyweight Champion. I don't see that happening. Could it? Sure, it definitely could. But I personally don't expect that to happen. Overall, the segment, it was solid. I enjoyed it. Seth Rollins' promo, it felt very, I don't want to say it was bad, because it really wasn't bad, but it lacked intensity, it lacked emotion. It was just kind of like one of those going through the motions promos. And like, if you're a wrestler that's watching this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're just going through the motions, you're trying to sell the story, but it just didn't seem like he was giving his 110%. LA Knight, on the other hand, he came out with a fire under his ass because he smoked that promo, which LA Knight is typical. Like, that's a normal day in the world of LA Knight, but he came out with a vengeance. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm watching this, I'm like, if he can do that consistently and have his in-ring match that, they will have no choice but to eventually crown him as champion. May not be this year, but damn it, down that line, his time is coming. And Seth even mentioned that in his rebuttal to LA Knight. He said, your time will come. It's just not going to be now. So overall, nice little segment. Definitely developing some stories going into the fall/winter. I don't see it ever really dying anytime soon, except for if somebody gets injured. That's really the only case. First match of the night, World Tag Team Championships. We had the Vision, aka Braun Breaker and Austin Theory versus the Street Profits. And overall, like, it was a solid tag match. But the Vision ended up picking up the win after Logan Paul tried to slide in the Nux. The referee caught him. Logan then distracts the referee. Austin Theory then goes for the other Nux, but Angelo Dawkins intercepts him. He now has the Nux, but out comes Maxine Dupree. Low blows Angelo Dawkins, and Austin Theory steals the tag titles away from the Street Profits again. Their title reign, 14 days, 2 weeks as champions. Whatever happened to long title reigns? Whatever happened to meaningful title reigns? We're going to get there in a second. Trust me. Obafemi and Paul Heyman face-to-face segment. Obafemi was called out by Paul Heyman, pretty much recapping what has happened over the past week with Brock and the Hell in a Cell announcement, and pretty much saying Brock Lesnar has dominated Hell in a Cell. He beat Undertaker twice. He has all this history. He's a legit UFC fighter. Pretty much the typical run-of-the-mill from Paul Heyman. Obafemi comes out and rebuttals Paul Heyman, and he held his own. I will say he held his own, but it definitely didn't spice things up. It didn't really amp up much excitement. It was pretty much just, okay, we're just going to keep building towards SummerSlam. There's really not much else to go off of. Women's IC title, Sol Ruca defeated Raquel Rodriguez. Liv Morgan and Roxanne attempted to interfere during the match, but Io Sky neutralized them, allowing Sol Ruca to pick up the win. Because overall, it was solid. Nothing crazy. It's very much a typical TV match for the women, which I've noticed on Raw and SmackDown. Not Dynamite. I will leave Dynamite out of this equation, but for Raw and for SmackDown, their TV matches, a lot of them, I want to say at least 95% of them, are very going through the motion. They're very run-of-the-mill. They're going through the motions. They're just, it's a lot of just getting your reps in. Granted, you have time and a place to get your reps in, but like this is just, it's essentially a lot of like the younger stars are starting to really kind of come into their own because they don't have enough TV time, shockingly enough, to get themselves over more. And, in the age of social media, that was always one thing that really kind of just boggled my mind, is that when it comes to wrestling specifically, and this is not just WWE, this is pretty much industry-wide, nobody necessarily takes a lot of time or effort outside of what they are given on said company, in said ring, to get themselves over. Rarely, and I mean rarely, do you see people doing vignettes? Do you see people doing promo work? I don't know if it's just me, but I don't know. Lately, I have been seeing a lack of wrestlers and people trying to get themselves over without the company or without being in the ring. I would love to see that improve. Not just with WWE, but I'm just talking as a whole. But either way, it was a very, like I said, it was run-of-the-mill, going through the motions type of match. I wouldn't say it was bad, because I don't think it was bad, but it was very standard. It was standard. Tag team match. We had Rusev and Ethan Page versus Chad Gable and Dragon Lee. The heels ended up winning here, and then after the match, Rusev and Page attacked both Gable and Dragon Lee. Joe Hendry came out and attempted to make the save, but the heels still ended up standing tall in the end. Backstage, Adam Pearce revealed that Cody Rhodes is not physically cleared to compete tonight and is being taken elsewhere, so now the main event is pretty much up in the air. And they played this off throughout the rest of the show. Sami Zayn at one point said, well, if you don't have an opponent for me, I might as well go home. But then Nick Aldis got involved. Pearce and them started to bicker. As Adam Pearce keeps getting sent to voicemail, Nick Aldis makes a call. And he's just like, we found an opponent for you. You are going out in there in the main event right now. So Sami Zayn goes out and he makes his entrance. And then out from the backstage area, we see the garage door open. And standing there in his ring gear is none other than CM Punk. Punk comes out. The crowd goes crazy. Absolutely bonkers. And him versus Sami Zayn is the main event for the WWE title. The match itself was very, very good. If you guys didn't watch Raw, go watch CM Punk versus Sami Zayn. I thought that was a very, very well done title match to end Monday Night Raw. And CM Punk ends up winning after a haluva kick right into a go to sleep for the 1, 2, 3. The Summer of Punk 2.0 officially starts now. And man, oh man, I will say, I don't hate that CM Punk won. Not even in the slightest. I am a fan of Punk. Can he be a bit much sometimes? Sure. Absolutely. I'm not going to negate that whatsoever. Do I hate that he won the title? No. No, I don't. My big concern is, how did you treat Sami Zayn? And a lot of that ends up falling on the back of none other than Triple H and TKO. After a lot of evaluation and listening to other people's opinions and seeing all the reactions and stuff from Night of Champions, there was one thing that really stood out to me. And that is that Triple H loves to act like he's being unpredictable by creating quote unquote moments. It's you hear it in wrestling all the time, no matter what company you're under. Everybody's like, oh, it's not about the match. They'll remember the moments. I was very much that same way when I came back from injury. I was like, let's not worry about the match. It's the moment of being back. That's what people are going to remember, which is true. And yes, Sami Zayn winning the WWE title was very much a feel-good moment. But, and this is the but, when your moments are interfering with stories and logical storytelling, what does that mean? The reason I say that is because I feel like, although it was time to pull the trigger on Sami Zayn, you have to strike while the iron is hot. I get all that. But what did this do for Sami Zayn? He won the title. Obviously, he's been killing it with this last good guy character, and it is working very, very well. But man, I would have loved to see him get his just due. We talked about this on last week's episode because I pretty much spent the majority of it talking about that. I loved that Sami Zayn won the title. I'm very, very happy for him. But looking at what WWE and the creative did pretty much set him up for failure. There is no sugarcoating that in any way, shape, or form. They set him up for failure. He was getting organic heat as well as organic reactions. Good or bad, depending on where you go. But no matter where he was going, it was organic. He was getting over organically. And like I said before, you got to strike while the iron is hot. And on top of that, I feel like Cody Rhodes' time at the top of the mountain has overstayed its welcome. And we talked about this on numerous episodes here. I want to say maybe the last 5 or 6 episodes on the SpectreVerse podcast. We have talked about this. Cody Rhodes as a babyface is boring. It's not exciting anymore. Ever since he finished his story at WrestleMania, he has slowly grown stale. It is the same shit over and over and over and over again. It's time for change. And this is for WWE as a whole. It's time for change. I love seeing Sami Zayn as the WWE champion because a lot of people did not expect that. And like I said in my Night of Champions preview and predictions, I was like, give it either to Sami or to Gunther. I don't care. Anybody but Cody. And it's not a knock on Cody because I very much like Cody. But like I said, his time at the top has grown stale. It's redundant. It's the same shit. Gunther would at least spice things up a little bit, but then you run the risk of, okay, now we got to properly book Gunther. And ChatGPT doesn't know how to properly book yet. And I say yet because obviously with the technology and the enhancements of AI growing faster and faster as the days progress, eventually I feel like we're going to get to that point. But right now, no. And I only say that just to laugh at WWE because, like, how are we going to have WWE, the top professional wrestling company in the world, on the planet, using AI to potentially write storylines? Because honestly, watching their television, that's what it feels like. But I digress. Gunther would have changed things up, but then you would have had to really put on your thinking cap as to how we're going to book Gunther as champion. How do we make him dominant? And at the same time, how do we build people up to get to Gunther and then have them potentially lose without having them drop so far down on the food chain. So I get that why they didn't do it. Sami Zayn was the oddball, the odd duckling. And I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad they pulled the trigger on him. But at the same time, what did this do for Sami? Granted, it got him in the main event scene by himself because he organically got over, but there was so much hate. So much hate from so many different people, for whatever reason, saying that he looks like Mick Foley, or he looks like somebody that could do pretty much the average Joe Schmo activities. He doesn't look like a main event guy. He doesn't feel like a main event guy. That's the point. In his heart of hearts, per this last good guy story and this character, he is the average guy. He's the underdog. He is what he feels like he was 13 years ago in NXT. But people are sick of that. That's the point. That's the character. And I wish that WWE would have tapped into this idea of, hey, let's not make Sami Zayn look like shit because he's putting in some of the best work of his entire career right now, and he fucking deserves it. 13 years of grinding in WWE. And I don't know if you guys watched that promo that he did after he lost the WWE Championship. Once again, that felt organic. That felt real. Like he legitimately felt like he got shafted. And I hope we get to see that play out on television because, that would be such good television. That's sit down, can't miss television. And I want to circle back here to what I said at the beginning. I'm not mad that CM Punk is champion. I said anybody but Cody. And the reason I say anybody but Cody is because he's stale now and it's the same shit over and over again. What Cody needs is what he's been running away from in AEW when he was there. He needs to turn to the dark side. He needs to go heel. I've been saying that for years now. Heel Cody is way better than babyface Cody. Babyface Cody, you can only do so much with and repeat that same story so many times before people stop caring. And that's where we're at right now. If you have Cody turn heel and we get to see that sadistic side of Cody Rhodes that we saw how many years ago with the Bullet Club, what he did in Impact, what he did in Ring of Honor, that's the Cody that we need right now. That deserves to be at the top of the card. If he wants to stay QB1, he needs to change some sort of aspect of his character. And why not have it be that? That's what I'm saying. CM Punk, though, after being out for 3 months, I will say, CM Punk looks like he's in the best shape of his life. He has absolutely been killing it in the gym. He looks phenomenal, and he wrestles pretty much perfectly for a guy his age. And I'm very, very happy that he is WWE champion because Lord knows SmackDown needs all the help that they can get. And hopefully him being at the top, that can help elevate everybody else around him. Now, granted, them switching to 2 hours could help a little bit. It could. But at the same time, they need everybody to feel important. You need Cody Rhodes as a heel. You need Punk as that top babyface. Sami Zayn needs to keep his momentum going. Gunther needs to feel like a legitimate killer again. That's just 4 right off the bat. Finn Balor needs to go back to those Prince days. Royce Keys, you got to keep building up. Trick is fine where he's at. Carmelo Hayes, we got to enhance him a little bit more as far as character work goes. Dragunov, eventually, when he comes back, that will be a nice addition to the roster. Drew McIntyre when he comes back. Randy Orton when he comes back. That's what SmackDown needs. They need that and long-term storytelling. That is the one thing that WWE has had such a hard time grasping. Long-term stories that start and that finish without any sort of interruptions. Granted, injuries is the exception to the rule. But they have such a hard time at long-term stories. Stories that are longer than 6 months, longer than 8 months. Let's have a year's worth of story and figure out where do we want to build our future? How are we going to build our future? What does it look like for next year with Obafemi, with Braun Breaker, Trick Williams? What are we going to do different with Carmelo Hayes? We need to build the future properly. And the best way to do that is to have your veterans helping elevate them while captivating the fan base with great story. That's what gets people to care. SummerSlam. For the WWE title picture, what does that look like? I think WWE Creative needs to make this a triple threat match for the WWE title. CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Sami Zayn. I would have thrown Gunther in there to make it a fatal four-way because he still is intertwined in all of this, but I feel like they're not going to do that, and here's my reasoning. With how the story is playing out on television, it's not necessarily that Gunther is mad at Cody, at Sami. He is mad at the system. He is mad at Nick Aldis because he keeps feeling like he keeps getting screwed. And so he wants to pick a fight with the general manager, Nick Aldis. And Nick, being the stubborn general manager / former wrestler, why not have him come out of retirement for one match and then officially get retired by Gunther so that Gunther can at least carry on this career killer character? I know he's lost a lot of aura over the past couple months, and I think him beating Nick Aldis will help kind of get him back on the right track. So that when the time comes, whenever, doesn't matter who is the WWE champion, Gunther will be right there ready for him. And then we can pull the trigger on Gunther as the WWE champion. So, with Gunther out of the picture with Nick Aldis, that leaves Cody, CM Punk, Sami. I know people are like, why not just do Cody versus Punk? The match it tells itself after the Raw after WrestleMania. I'm sure it does. But if we're playing off of the storylines that we see on television, you don't think he's going to feel some type of way having to go to Monday Night Raw, even though he's a SmackDown superstar, holding the WWE Championship, which is technically a SmackDown Championship? He has to go to the opposite brand to defend his title. You don't think he's going to take that personally and feel some type of way about it? I think so. And you know what? I feel like he is going to cause enough chaos because it's going to be all eyes on Cody and Punk, but Sami keeps getting his head into business that he feels is his, but at the same time, the other two are like, no, this is between me and him, until eventually they have no choice and Sami inserts himself into that picture. That's what WWE should do. You can play it off as Cody versus Punk all you want, and then have Sami just constantly sliding himself in, because that's been the story ever since WrestleMania. He slotted himself into the US title picture. He slotted himself into the WWE title picture at Night of Champions. With all those different storylines, he is just trying to slide his way in to get what he wants. That's the heel tactic. But at the same time, in his head, he thinks he's the last good guy. He's trying to do what's right. He's trying to be the underdog. That's the irony of his character, and that's what makes it so captivating. And people fail to realize that. And I'm pissed that WWE literally gave him 9 days as the guy. And people kept complaining about, oh, he doesn't draw money. Oh, he's not putting asses in seats. Motherfucker, you barely gave him time to do any of that. Literally. Like, that shit doesn't make any fucking sense in my head. So that's what I think should happen for SummerSlam. Gunther and Nick Aldis. And then a triple threat match. Cody versus Punk versus Sami Zayn for the WWE title. Overall, I did think Raw was a solid show. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a bad show, because it definitely wasn't. On to SmackDown. We're going to kind of brush over this because a lot of this, ended up playing out on Raw. So we're going to kind of go through this a little more quickly. Sami Zayn came out and he celebrated becoming the Undisputed Champion. He acknowledged fans that supported him while taking shots at the ones who doubted him, saying that he became champion by staying true to himself. Cody Rhodes interrupted him and congratulated Sami, but immediately stated he wants his rematch. Jey Uso ended up joining them in the fray, reminding everyone that he also deserves a championship rematch. And then Adam Pearce, who was the acting general manager with Nick Aldis being out until Monday, announced that Cody Rhodes versus Jey Uso is the main event, number one contender for the title. Obviously, we just talked about it. That's not what happened. Jade Cargill, Michin, and B-Fab versus Charlotte Flair, Tiffany Stratton, and Chelsea Green. Charlotte and Tiffany struggled to work together while Chelsea Green tried to keep the team united. Jade eventually hit Jaded on Chelsea Green to score the victory for her team, and the loss pretty much continues the tension between Tiffany and Charlotte. Wouldn't be surprised if all of this gets intertwined into a triple threat Women's United States Championship match at SummerSlam. Just going to throw that out there right now. Backstage, Alexa Bliss confronts Charlotte Flair, and she questioned Charlotte about her recent alliance with Tiffany, and Charlotte denied that there was any hidden agenda, but the interaction hinted that there is more conflict brewing between Alexa and Charlotte. Honestly, I could care less. Just being honest. AAA Cruiserweight Championship, Rey Fenix versus Vikingo. This match was awesome. I will just flat out say it. Vikingo's awesome, even though I believe I saw he got injured in this match. But I'm glad that they're rebuilding Rey Fenix. He needs all the help that he can get. Obviously, with Penta doing as well as he's doing, I know they want to rebuild him back up. And then hopefully, within the coming years, we get the Lucha Brothers on WWE television. That would be phenomenal. But Vikingo in this match, he nearly captured the title after an incredible top rope poison rana, but Phoenix survived and retained the championship with the Mexican Muscle Buster. And yes, like I said, this match was exciting. It was a lot of high flying, a lot of very, very big and cool spots. And I wouldn't be surprised if WWE eventually gets Vikingo on the main roster. Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes. Hayes comes out and confronts Trick Williams. Trick agreed to face Carmelo Hayes in a non-title match next week, but the exchange ended with Trick slapping Hayes across the face, which is essentially going to reignite their rivalry that they've had for years in NXT. The history of them being on a team, to eventually Trick Williams going off on his own. Now we're starting to see it play out on the main roster, which I'm a big fan of both. I think Trick has come a very, very long way, and I will give him a lot of credit where it's due. But now we need to get Carmelo Hayes to match that same energy. I don't know how they're going to do it, but that's what we need. He's got everything you need in a wrestler when it comes to in-ring. His promo skills are very solid, but now we need more substance. Who is Carmelo Hayes? Why should we care about Carmelo Hayes? That's what we need to see. Lainey Reed versus Brie Bella. Brie Bella appeared to have the match won after locking in the yes lock, but members of Fatal Influence attacked Paige at ringside, which distracted her. Lainey Reed then capitalized with a running knee strike to score the upset win over Brie Bella. And now Fatal Influence continues to target the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Fatal Influence versus Brie and Paige at SummerSlam. Maybe have Nikki Bella, depending on if she's cleared yet or not, to get involved in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully, we then see Fatal Influence win the tag team titles. Main event number 1 contenders match, Cody Rhodes versus Jey Uso. Jey injured his ankle during the match but continued to fight. After multiple near falls and a closing stretch, Cody hit his second crossroads for the 1-2-3. And people were very, very upset when Cody Rhodes won this match. I guess it was kind of very much a pick your own poison between Cody and Jey. Because I'm going to flat out say it. I don't think anybody wants to see Jey Uso in the main event title picture anymore. And like I said with Cody before, it's a lot of rinse and repeat. It's the same shit over and over again. We saw it with Cena. We saw it with the big dog Roman Reigns. We've seen this time and time again. We don't want to see it with Cody. Treat him better than you treated them. Switching gears over to AEW Dynamite. I will say, Dynamite was awesome. This was easily their most focused show I've seen in a couple weeks. Like I said last week and the week before, I don't feel as if the Forbidden Door pay-per-view needs to end per se, but I do feel like it needs to be restructured in the calendar year so that it's not interfering with the build to All In. That was my big concern, is because you're trying to tell these stories, but then when you have the crossover pay-per-view, the Forbidden Door, that's where things can get a little side questy, and we don't want that building up to your biggest show of the year. That was my one gripe with the Forbidden Door, minus the very long matches and the long run time. There's no need, and I mean no need, for a pay-per-view to go over 5 hours. 4 should be the max. The absolute max. But the show for Dynamite was easily the best open I've seen Dynamite have maybe ever. It was very, very story driven. And it hit on every single mark. The show started. It was a pre-tape from post Forbidden Door. So it was after the main event. Renee Paquette is backstage with Will Ospreay, and she wants to get a word with Will about his big win, and now he's heading to All In to wrestle MJF for the world title. But then Jon Moxley is in the locker room, and he's standing there. He says, "Can I talk to Will for a second?" So Alex Windsor leaves, Renee leaves, and it's just Moxley and Ospreay. And he pretty much just double checks on him, make sure he's all right. And then pretty much says, "Listen, the Death Riders and I took a vote," and he pulls out the Death Riders patch. And he says, "I don't just hand this out to anybody. But if you want to ride with us, you want to ride with me, you can go wherever you want to go." And he says, "I'm proud of you," and then hands it to him. And that was such a very, very feel-good moment. And I did see, because I know a lot of people were like, I like the aspect of Will Ospreay being a Death Rider, because now that's going to enhance the story, not just on AEW television, but on New Japan television, because United Empire is still over there, and they feel some type of way about Ospreay being a part of the Death Riders, or being intertwined with them. So obviously this not just enhances that, it enhances that. And it's funny because I went back because I was like, you know what? I kind of want to rewatch the story between Ospreay and Jon Moxley and how all this came to be. And realistically, it all makes sense. So let's just start from the top. Ospreay, he wrestles Moxley, injures his neck. We all know that. He's out for X amount of months. He comes back at, I believe it was Revolution in February. Makes his return at Revolution. He ends up wrestling the same way, and he keeps losing, and he keeps losing. Then he wrestles Mark Davis, and he gets battered and bruised. You know, Mark Davis, his former United Empire partner, member, gets battered and bruised, and he keeps trying to do the same stuff that got him to this place, but he keeps ending up on the wrong side of the coin. Out comes the Death Riders, and instead, they end up pile driving him, and then they end up taking him away. And that's where we get the first sit down backstage from Collision. I wish it was on Dynamite, but it was on Collision, of Moxley sitting Ospreay down and pretty much saying, it's time for a change. You know it. I know it. We all know it. You want to heal yourself? You want to become the best version of yourself? You want to become that killer? Train with us. And so, Ospreay takes, although it's a crazy thing to get dropped on your head by somebody and be like, you know what? You have a good point. Let me ride with you. Let me train with you. That part, I think, is what threw everybody off. But I think it's the politician that is Jon Moxley. You see how he talks ever since the Death Riders became a thing. He talks in these riddles, and I know a lot of people didn't understand it then when he was AEW champion and he locked it up in a suitcase, which I will be completely honest, I liked the story and I saw the vision. I just don't think that was the proper time to do it. They should have started small and slowly worked their way up to the main event to become champion. It felt very rushed. It felt very forced. And eventually we got to him versus Hangman, where Hangman won. But either way, I digress. Moxley sits down Ospreay, says, come with us. We'll heal you. We'll rebuild you into this assassin that you are supposed to be. Ospreay shows up to train with them. And then that's where we kept getting the cutouts. Then we got the part where they were on top of the building, training his neck, and pretty much saying, hey, you need to be a bird of prey. You need to attack people. You need to hit them where it hurts. Because that's how you're going to get to this next level. And Ospreay took his advice during the tournament. Won with submission holds. We never saw that Ospreay do any sort of like submission hold that he won with. He won with the armbar. He won with all these different ways and just really started embracing that killer assassin side of him. Then we got the thing with the ops and the Death Riders came to his aid. So the trust that is building between Ospreay and Moxley, seeing that play out on television is fantastic. And yes, I would love to see Will Ospreay as that number 2 in command with Jon Moxley, being like, hey, you're going to be our star pupil. I'll just be your coach. You are our star here. And we are going to follow however you see fit. That would be phenomenal. And I like the Death Riders. I like what they represent. I like the realistic aspect of, hey, this is legit. This is a true sport. It really feels like a UFC team. Which I know a lot of people are like, oh, UFC intertwined with WWE or UFC intertwined with professional wrestling. It doesn't always necessarily work. We've seen a lot of times where it doesn't work. This actually feels like it works. That's why I like the Death Riders, because they're different, they're legit, and you can't ever really seem to knock anything that really goes on in that storyline. Because you can do a lot of different things with the Death Riders as a group. My one gripe, I wish they would be either a distinguished heel team or a distinguished babyface team. I don't like the tweener aspect because it's very hard to be like, okay, one week we're going to attack the baby faces. The other week we're going to attack heels. I don't like that as far as the world of professional wrestling goes. So anyways, back to the open, because I got very, very sidetracked. So we saw it all play out. Moxley hands him the patch, says, "I'm proud of you." And as Ospreay is looking at it and walking away, he runs into none other than Kenny Omega. And we know the story between Ospreay and Omega. It goes back years and years. And pretty much Omega says, "I'm proud of you. Hey, don't worry about the patch. I'm not going to judge you for it. All I'm going to say is just keep eyes in the back of your head. You can't always trust them. But either way, I'm proud of you, and I'm very, very happy for you." And then Ospreay says, "Listen, I appreciate the kind words, but you're not my dad. Don't treat me like I'm your son." And then that's where MJF comes out and pretty much says, "Oh, it's this lover's quarrel. Look at that. How cute." And pretty much then threatens to see Will Ospreay at Wembley Stadium and tells Omega to pretty much fuck off. Very, very, very fantastic open to Dynamite. First match, AEW World Championship, MJF versus Mark Briscoe. Mark ended up winning this number one contenders match at Forbidden Door to challenge MJF tonight. But MJF ended up retaining the title, and Briscoe nearly won with the J Driller, but MJF survived and stole the win. Obviously, we knew Mark Briscoe wasn't going to win the AEW World Title. It didn't call for it, and it would have been downright stupid to pull the trigger on him. But I will say, the match itself was very, very good. After the match, MJF attacks Mark Briscoe, and then Kenny Omega comes in to make the save. Kenny then says that, "I want a shot at the AEW World Championship, and I don't know about you, but if you have all this energy to beat up people after their match, why not? Let's do it tonight." MJF then refuses the immediate match, but offers Kenny Omega a match next week under the one condition that if Omega loses, just like his buddy Hangman, he can never wrestle for the AEW title ever again. He then has to ponder this. He's like, "I'm not expecting an answer right now. You have all night to answer this." Kenny then looks distraught. He looks concerned. He starts thinking about it. And MJF walks to the back. Backstage, he runs into Andrade and pretty much yells at him and promises revenge for attacking him at Forbidden Door. Ospreay then questioned why MJF just added that harsh stipulation to Omega's match. And MJF pretty much dismissed him and reminded Ospreay that he will see him at Wembley, and until then, stay out of this. Andrade then announced that he officially left the Don Callis family and wants a shot at the AEW title, but before he could finish, the Don Callis family attacked him and pretty much cementing the split. I feel like we're going to see some sort of intertwining between him and the Don Callis family before he eventually moves on to the main event scene. Mercedes celebrated her win as the second straight Owen Hart Cup winner, and she declared that she will be winning the Women's World Championship at All In as the final accomplishment that she needs. TNT title match, Kevin Knight versus Lio Rush. Kevin Knight retained here. Lio Rush, I'm glad to see that the Blackheart character of Lio is getting over just organically. I think a lot of people at first were like, what the fuck is this? But then once you see the resemblance between what he's trying to portray and what he's actually portraying, because at first people are like, this is a complete night and day from what we saw with Leo. But then once we really started to see like the character work of, oh, he's essentially playing Gollum from Lord of the Rings, which I'm not a huge Lord of the Rings fan, but I definitely watched all of the movies back in the day when I was a kid. I love the fact that this is the first time we're really seeing it in professional wrestling. So I think it fits him perfectly. The match itself was very, very good. And like I said, Kevin Knight retained with the UFO. Afterward, Darby Allin demanded a title match against Kevin Knight, and Don Callis interrupted and refused to grant that challenge, which will then eventually lead to All In, where we see Darby versus Kevin Knight. Tommaso Ciampa called Chris Jericho a bully, and then Jericho responded by throwing a trash can, leading to a wild backstage brawl. And I will say, it was very, very wild. Like, both men could not control their hate towards each other, and they were literally getting pulled apart from across the parking lot. Omega then speaks to the Young Bucks, and the Bucks pretty much just reassure Omega by saying, hey, regardless of what you do, we have your back. Moxley and Will Ospreay versus the Swirl. Moxley and Ospreay ended up beating Blake Christian and Lee Johnson. And then after the match, it became clear that Ospreay has accepted Mox's invitation and officially aligned himself with the Death Riders. Christian Cage and Adam Copeland discuss Jay White. There was a backstage interview that revisited Forbidden Door. Christian Cage questioned Adam Copeland about Jay White's involvement, and Cope said the favor between them has been repaid. Jay White, speaking of which, then comes out and he cuts a fantastic promo. I love Jay White because he knows how to sell anything that he does. And he pretty much addressed his return at Forbidden Door. He called out David Finlay and mocked him as a Nepo baby, and then hinted at rebuilding the Bang Bang Gang. Shane Taylor Promotions then later answered the challenge for Collision. We don't cover Collision. We barely watch Collision. It's fine. TBS Championship, Survival of the Fittest match. We had Hikaru Shida, Chris Statlander, Micah, Queen Aminata, Harley Cameron, and Persephone. Essentially, this is like a gauntlet-style elimination match so pretty much it starts with all competitors, and each one is brawling until if you get pinned or submitted, then you're eliminated, and it goes one by one by one. Hikaru Shida ended up winning this match and is now the new TBS champion. Good for her. I'm not huge on... I will say I'm not like super invested in what the women are doing on AEW. I definitely like the wrestling aspect, but there is very much a lack of character when it comes to the AEW women's side of things. So I'm very happy for Hikaru Shida, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, let's see where we go from here. And then at the end of the show, Omega comes out, and pretty much on his way out, Ospreay runs into him and encourages Omega to believe in himself before he makes his decision. Omega then delivers a very emotional promo about wanting the AEW championship, and he wants to be the champion that AEW deserves, and he officially accepts MJF's challenge for this Wednesday, which means we have a very, very big main event tonight. Who should walk out the AEW champion? I'll be completely honest here. I feel as if MJF should walk out as the AEW champion. How are they going to do it? I don't know. But clearly, the stipulation of if you lose, you can never wrestle for the title again. That stipulation is so hard. But at the same time, you can actually do so much with it. And let me explain here. Omega, MJF. Let's say by the strangest stunt of the imagination, let's say MJF beats Kenny Omega clean as a whistle. Omega then can never wrestle for the AEW championship ever again. Eventually, then we lead to Ospreay and MJF at Wembley. They put on a phenomenal match. Ospreay wins. He gets his big moment, and the Death Riders are officially back on top of the AEW mountain. If they really want to then twist the knife, have Ospreay constantly taunt Kenny Omega. Have like that Death Rider heelish side start to turn into confidence and arrogance, and pretty much just driving Omega insane to the point where he then now has to go back on his word. And same with Hangman. This is where you can get Hangman back into the fold here, because it's like, okay, you made a promise that you would never wrestle for this title. I'm going to make you go back on your word, and I'm going to do anything in order to prove that point. Because that's always the hardest thing as a babyface, is to go back on your word. I'm just throwing ideas out there. Obviously, anything can happen. And on the flip side of that coin, if you have Kenny Omega win, I don't think anybody will be upset to have Kenny Omega win to then get Ospreay versus Omega at Wembley Stadium at All In. I don't think anybody in their right mind should be upset about that. You saw what happened at Forbidden Door years ago. One of the greatest matches ever. Ospreay and Omega. You know for a fact what you're going to get if that is the case. However, considering MJF did just win the title back not that long ago, I would hate to see it have to get hot potatoed between him, Omega, right to Ospreay. For me, that just doesn't sit well with me. I hate, and this is a big gripe I have with professional wrestling sometimes, is title reigns feel as if they're nothing. Title reigns, not only just winning the title, as obviously it's a reward for all the hard work and for, doing the right things, whether you're a heel, whether you're a babyface, for being the best at what you do. That is getting that world title. I don't like the fact if things get hot potatoed because people can't make up their minds, or politicking, or all of that jazz. That shit drives me nuts. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But lately, especially on WWE and AEW, title reigns very much don't feel super, super important. Goes with Roman Reigns. Obviously, the hot potatoing between the WWE title, that didn't help. The hot potatoing with the AEW title. Granted, Darby's, although it was a shot in the dark, and although I may not fully 100% agree with it, I do see what ended up coming of it, and it was actually a solid title reign. Although it was short, it was exactly what it needed to be. But I feel like we need to cut that where it's at now. We need to have title reigns that feel like something. And I know, regardless of if it's MJF or Kenny Omega at All In, Ospreay is walking out as the AEW champion. I don't think anybody is going to deny that. How we get there is going to be the most important thing. Now, before we wrap things up, I do want to talk about the news on Sheamus. Sheamus, the reports published said that Sheamus is expected to leave WWE when his current contract expires, and according to those reports, he reportedly denied a restructuring contract offer while recovering from an injury. If he departs when his deal ends, he would become a free agent without a standard 90-day compete period, and WWE has not officially confirmed this. Sheamus has been recovering from a shoulder surgery after being sidelined late 2025. Recent updates show that he is training at the Performance Center, fueling speculation that he is being close to being medically cleared for an in-ring return. But that is really about it. TKO. They are on the hunt for older talent, whether we like them or we don't. We saw it with the New Day. They were granted their release because they weren't willing to take a pay cut. Granted, both of them, I wouldn't say are up there in age, but they were getting paid too much money. They're, on a number standpoint, they are looking at Sheamus and his contract, and they're like, we're not using you. Honestly, we probably don't have much for you at this point. Would you be willing to restructure your deal? And he said no. And that's why they're like, okay, when your contract is up, you're done. But 19 years in WWE, easily a first ballot Hall of Famer. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Multi-tag team champion, United States champion, multi-world champion. The one thing on his list that he has not accomplished was the Intercontinental Champion. I do wish we got to see that run. I would love to see Sheamus get his just due and become a Grand Slam champion by capturing the IC title. The question is, will it happen? And honestly, I don't know. He is 40-some years old. I think 48, 49 years old. He's up there in age. So, whether he ends up going to AEW or not, either way, his legacy in WWE is already stamped, signed, approved. We will see him in the Hall of Fame no matter what. That's really all my thoughts on that. And that's honestly going to do it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on that bell for notifications. You guys can also follow me on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at JariSpectre. And you guys can also follow the SpectreVerse page on Facebook as well at the SpectreVerse. Anytime I upload my weekly podcast on pro wrestling, it will be seen there first. Anytime I go live for gaming, it will be seen there first. So make sure you guys go and follow me on Facebook. Speaking of live streaming, this Thursday, College Football 27 comes out, and for those of you that know me, I love college football. Not just the game, not just real life, I love college football. And I'm very, very excited that for the first time it is coming to PC. I'm a very brand new PC guy because of the SpectreVerse channel. So I'm very, very stoked to announce that this Friday, that's right, this Friday, July 10th, sometime in the afternoon, whether it's 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, I will be going live. And you guys get to watch me play College Football 27. I am stoked, I'm excited, and I hope you guys come hang out. This is where, on that channel, we are going to be shooting the shit. You guys get to watch me just be me, playing video games in my element. That channel is going to be JariSpectre Live. Anytime I do any sort of gameplay going forward, it will be on that channel. JariSpectre Live is the @ The name itself is just more JariSpectre. But that's where you guys get to see me live stream. That's where you guys get to see me play games. You guys get to just see me more in my own element versus just this show. So like I said, this Friday, I'm not sure what time, probably 2, 3 o'clock, somewhere in that ballpark, I will be going live and we're going to be playing college football. It's going to be one hell of a time, so make sure you guys to go subscribe to that channel as well if you are into that kind of stuff. And until episode 26, we will see each and every single one of you next time. Peace out.
Summon the Spectre.